Hi, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate you being here to watch this training video on restorative practices, the art and science of talking circles. My name is Mark Evanoff and I'm the school counselor at Fusion Charter. Today, me and my co-presenter David Ashby will be leading you through a training video on talking circles. They've been very successful here at our school at Fusion Charter, and we can't wait to share some of the details with you. This is a picture of Fusion Charter. It's a brick and mortar school located in the Central Valley of California. Specifically, we're in Turlock, California. We work primarily with students who've experienced adverse childhood experiences, and therefore we are a trauma-sensitive, trauma-informed staff, trauma-informed school. We're also a community school. This is a little image of some of the features here at our school. A picture of our staff, our front of the building, some of the beautification gardens that we've built, our greenhouse, our emotional support dog, Pablo, as well as our peace pole. As far as our agenda today, by the end of our session, we hope to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the significance and potential of talking circles in education and inspire you to incorporate them in your own educational practices and initiatives. The power of talking circles. Talking circles offer a transformative approach to conflict resolution and community building. They go beyond traditional disciplinary measures, emphasizing understanding and empathy rather than punishment. In a talking circle, participants sit in a circle symbolizing equality and unity and take turns speaking while others listen without interruption. Next, I'd like to show you a video from the Restorative Institute on what are talking circles.
Our world is changing at a breathtaking pace. Social patterns that have long characterized human life are changing dramatically around the globe, diminishing social bonds within families, schools, workplaces, and communities. But humans are hardwired to connect. Just as we need food, shelter, and clothing, we also need strong and meaningful relationships to thrive. With all this in mind, what is restorative practices? Restorative practices is an emerging social science that studies how to strengthen relationships between individuals and within communities. When put into practice, the effects are profound. In schools, students experience greater safety and sense of belonging, resulting in improved behavior, less bullying, and less violence. In workplaces, leaders facilitate direct communication among staff and address conflict as it arises. The result is higher performance, greater accountability, and effective collaboration. In criminal justice, new options allow victims and offenders, friends and family, to repair the emotional harm caused by crime. Throughout our neighborhoods, restorative practices give regular people more voice in the issues that matter most. In a nutshell, restorative practices is the science of relationships and community. Your individual daily interactions have a big impact on the world around you, at your job, with young people, and throughout your community. How we relate matters. This video was brought to you by the International Institute for Restorative Practices. To learn more, attend our flagship event, Basic Restorative Practices, enroll in a graduate course, or join us at a world conference.
Thank you. And now I'd like to speak to you a little bit about the key highlights of talking circles in schools. Talking circles serve as powerful tools for building empathy, understanding, and community within school environments. They offer a structured yet flexible approach to addressing various social and emotional aspects of student life. The benefits of talking circles over suspensions. Schools must comply with new California legislation AB 1165 as of 2024, which encourages the use of restorative justice practices for acts of racist bullying, harassment, or intimidation for victim and perpetrator. As of July 2024, AB 274 will effectively end willful defiance as a reason for suspension. Therefore, this slide here could be its own presentation. However, for today's presentation, we just wanted to indicate how these talking circles can be used effectively as opposed to discipline and punishment. Next, I'd like to introduce my co-presenter, David Ashby, who's going to lead us on the practical aspects of talking circles. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mark. My name's David Ashby. I'm the assistant principal at Fusion Charter School. I want to kind of get a read of our audience. So think to yourself, from 0 to 5, a 0 being low and a 5 being high, how familiar are you with talking circles? Next, how successful are talking circles at your school or place of work? Again, 0 to 5. Next, I'd like to review various ways Fusion uses talking circles. Fusion uses talking circles in different ways. We have new student orientations. The orientations are like intake meetings. We have a lot of students who are coming and going through our school throughout the year, and I am in charge of those new student and family orientations. The teachers lead classroom talking circles once a week, usually about 15 to 20 minutes each. We use these talking circles with staff trainings, staff meetings. The idea is we want to get buy-in and have all the staff have an opportunity to give voice to a new training or policy that's being implemented on campus. Also, new staff interviews. We have our regular interview questions. What are your qualifications? Tell us about working with children, at-risk children. And then ask these questions in a talking circle. The candidate will give an answer and then pass the talking piece around so the panelists can give an answer too. The philosophy behind the interview circle is we are interviewing the candidate and the candidate is interviewing us. We also use these talking circles for attendance issues, conflict resolution, and oftentimes we say, this is the way. Native American roots. I'd like to give a land grant and pay honor to the natives that came before us. Turlock is located in Stanislaus County. The natives of Stanislaus region have been called the Yakuts, who occupied about 250 miles along the San Joaquin Valley and a smaller strip along the eastern foothills in the Stanislaus River near Knight's Ferry. Native American roots. These circles, talking circles, also called peacemaking circles, come from the tradition of indigenous people in North America, particularly tribes in the Midwest. The circle processes are based upon equality between participants and the principle of sharing power with each other instead of having power over one another. The circle process. The circle process starts with circle seating and goes all the way down to a closing activity. What we're going to do is review each of these processes in detail. Next, circle seating. Circle seating is very important. Geometry matters. The seating arrangement allows everyone to see each other. The circle creates equality and connectedness. No furniture is the best practice. However, use what's available in your classroom or workspace. Oftentimes, you will see a small coffee table in the middle of the circle. It also increases the accountability because all body language is obvious to all. Next, we have a mindful moment. This is a short, distinct moment of stillness to allow participants to disconnect from the distractions, focusing on the tone of the keeper's voice, calm and smooth. If people have a cell phone, it's best to put it on mute or off. The keeper is a person who is the leader of the circle. They facilitate the circle. Next, we have state the purpose. This directs the circle. The purpose of today is to introduce basic elements of the circle to staff. It sets expectations and answers the question of why are we here? The questions the keeper will ask are related to the purpose. The opening activity. The opening activity begins the sacred space. The opening and closing activities should be the same type of activity. If you start with a quote, you should end with a quote. Or start with a video, you should end with the video. It helps participants center themselves. It is also relevant to the purpose. Centerpieces. The centerpieces are a place to focus your eyes. The keeper identifies why the items were chosen. It tells a story. During a hard or awkward conversation, eye contact might be difficult, so we encourage participants to look to the middle of the circle, look for strength. put their energy into the middle and let that energy go out to the others within the circle. Talking pieces. Talking pieces are an important element. In fact, they are the most important element of the circle. Talking pieces should come from the participants to create a shared ownership. The person holding the talking piece may speak without interruption. Everyone else listens without the need to respond. People are invited to speak. They may always pass and say nothing. It always goes around the circle and does not bounce around the circle. Adults must honor the expectations that one person may speak while holding the talking piece. The talking piece creates that equality amongst the circle. All are equal and all rules apply to everyone within the circle. Introductions and check-ins. What do the participants want to be called? Not necessarily what is your name. My name is David Ashby, but I like to be called just Ashby. We invite people to introduce themselves if they don't already know each other. Check-in questions allow participants to share about themselves so they get to know each other a little bit better. I like to use check-in questions on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high. I get to read the circle of how people are feeling for that day. Some check-in questions might just be a single word. How are you doing? Good, bad, fair, amazing. It allows the keeper to get a read on how the participants are feeling at that moment. Next are values. Values are important so participants feel safe. It's important to honor what people value in the circle. It's not a material value like your cell phone or your shoes. It's a feeling you have inside. A common practice is to have each person write a value on a card or have the keeper write all the values on a sheet, then place in the center. With a pass of the talking piece, each person shares their value and explains why the value is important. Next, I'd like to show you a video on values.
Imagine values are like flowers that like to be picked every day. Values are like an inner compass. They are what matter to you deep in your heart. The person you want to be. The way you would like to treat yourself. The way that you would like to treat others. The things that you feel passionate about. There are no right or wrong values, just as there are no right or wrong flowers. Values are what matter to you, so try picking several values and use them throughout your day.
Next, we have guidelines. The number one guideline always is respect the talking piece. The talking piece gives structure to the circle. Best practices is to generate the guidelines from the participants. Examples might be speak only for yourself or keep body language respectful. With the talking piece, ask participants if they agree on the guidelines. If anyone has objections, they explore both the objection and the original purpose of the guideline to come to a consensus. Oftentimes in schools, our teachers will have a preset guidelines. The guidelines will always be respect the talking piece, speak from the heart, listen from the heart, be your best self, and what is shared in the circle stays in the circle. That is the, shall we say, Las Vegas rule, and that is for privacy. What happens in the circle will stay in the circle, and no one else has to know about what was discussed. Next, it's a talking circle activity, and it is your turn. I'm going to invite some Fusion staff to join us in a talking circle, and we will review circle seating through guidelines. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us in the circle today. First, I would like to have a mindful moment. Please, if you would turn off your cell phones, put them on mute. I'd like to be present and available for this moment now. Let's start with a breathing exercise called box breathing. I'd like everyone to focus their attention here to the center. Take a deep breath in, hold, breathe out, breathe in, hold, breathe out. Our purpose today is to create an opportunity for a direct experience of being in a circle with staff. We're going to introduce elements of the circle in an introduction circle with staff members. Next, we have our opening activity, and it is the introduction to talking circles. Let's take a look. The talking piece and centerpieces are very important parts of the talking circle. In a talking circle, the talking piece signifies that a person has the right to speak, and they can say as much or as little as they want. But the beauty of this is they can also pass and say nothing. In a talking circle, people are invited to speak, but they are not required to speak.
Yes, why do we stay out of sight of the windows?
Pass.
The talking piece is whoever is holding the talking piece is the one who can speak. If you are not holding the talking piece, you cannot speak. However, you are allowed to pass, and the keeper is the one who normally initiates the talking piece.
Sitting in circle is enough. We pass the talking piece from hand to hand around the circle, working as a group to have a conversation. The centerpiece is also important. It tells a story. It's a place where people can focus their eyes. Oftentimes, it's difficult to look at people in the eyes during hard or awkward conversations. So we focus our attention in the middle, and from there, the energy goes out to the others within the circle. So what it means to speak from the heart and listen from the heart means that you speak with respect and that you listen with respect.
Listening from the heart is to be respectful towards the speaker and try to understand what the speaker is coming from.
When we speak from the heart, it is important that we are staying on topic of whatever the leader or the keeper has said and asked us, and so we are able to give meaningful responses.
I think talking circles are beneficial because everyone can get to know their teacher and they get to know their other classmates. So even though you may not talk to each other outside of class or outside of school, and even though you may not continue talking to one another, you can still know at the end of the day that that is what your classmate enjoys and that is what your classmate prefers in something.
I enjoy it. I like to talk anyway, so it works for me, and it's good, like he said, to get a chance to get to know one another. I mean, we got to learn, I know what you like to eat, you love carne asada tacos, well, I'm going to remember that for later.
Talking circles prevent reactive conversations by having a structure to the circle. A reactive conversation is something you might see at the dinner table growing up as a kid. You have to blurt in and get your answer in or get your point across and maybe cut off other people. That's not how a talking circle works. Talking circles are a structured conversation by passing the talking piece around the circle. Everyone can say as much or as little as they want. We always say, just say enough. And enough might be nothing, and that's okay.
It's hard to reach some of our students sometimes, and it's hard to have them open up, especially with our population. So I really, I brainstormed and I thought, what should we talk about? How can I get these students to open up? And so I actually picked the subject of bereavement. I've lost cousins, I've lost friends, in my hometown due to drugs, due to crime. And so I noticed that our students, were involved in some of this stuff. Their family members are involved in some of this stuff. They come from low-income neighborhoods. And so I picked that subject for a reason, and it was my favorite because that subject right there, there was students that have never ever said anything in circle. They opened up, and not only opened up, but a lot of them really poured out their hearts, and it was really touching. It brought me to tears, that just thinking about it right now, seeing them actually open up and seeing them actually pour their hearts out and actually cry. And I never thought that could happen, but it happened during that circle.
So talking circles foster deeper listening by people having their focus on the speaker. When someone is speaking, when they're holding the talking piece, the others in the circle are really focused on what they're saying. They know that they're not going to be blurting in, they're not going to be cutting someone off, so they can focus their complete and total attention on that speaker so they can help with the talking process and the listening process.
I would personally recommend talking circles to other schools because I wish they had these restorative justice circles when I was going through school. Growing up, I wasn't very open with my ideas, with my emotions, so I suppressed a lot of stuff, and it ended up exploding in a lot of different negative ways. And so I wish I had a safe environment to actually talk about this stuff, to actually, let these emotions out, let these opinions out, and know that I wasn't alone.
My role is of the keeper, and I can talk without the talking piece. The talking pieces are very important. They help facilitate the conversation within the circle. When you're holding the talking piece, it is your turn to speak. It is the other people's turn to listen. We pass this around hand to hand around the circle. It can go left, it can go right. You are invited to speak. You may always pass and say nothing, and that's okay. Next, we want to look at the centerpiece. I chose the orange flowers because the orange represents the orange and black from Fusion Charter. Sometimes during these circles, it might be hard to look at each other in the eyes. So I say, always talk to the center. Put your energy here in the middle and let that energy go out to the others within the circle. Next, we have introductions and check-in round. Now I want you to think, what is your name, or more importantly, what you like to be called? Also, how are you doing today? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very low, 10 being very high. So, what would you like to be called, and how are you today? I'll start. My name is Ashby, and I'm feeling at a 9.
My name is Cynthia, and I feel like about an 8.
My name is Zach, and I'm feeling a 9.
I'm Gabrielle, and I'm at a 10.
Thank you. Next, we have values. And these are values that we want to honor here in our circle. You can see examples of values here within the circle. Values are something that you hold important in your heart. They're not a value like I value my shoes or I value my cell phone. We want to honor your values here. Now, part of being in circles is making connections. If you see a value here, you can copy it. We're all human, we all have a brain, and sometimes we have the same ideas, and that's okay. I want you to share a value that you bring to the workplace as an educator and want to model for students. I'll start. A value that I have is honesty.
I have love and support.
A value I want to bring to the workplace is patience.
I value authenticity.
Thank you. Next part are guidelines. Guidelines are kind of like the rules of the circle. I'll read the guidelines and then I'll pass it around so we can all share the guidelines. Guideline number 1, respect the talking piece.
Guideline number 2, just say enough.
Guideline number 3, listen from the heart.
Guideline number 4, speak from the heart.
Guideline number 5, be your best self.
Guideline number 6, what is shared in the circle stays in the circle.
We leave these guidelines out just to remind us of how we should act within the circle. Now, number 6 is for privacy. What is shared in the circle stays in the circle. Now, of course, we are all mandated reporters. And so if we hear something from a student about harm to self or harm to others, we are required to report out on this. Now, exactly what is being practiced in the circles? We have respect. Respect, each voice is given an opportunity to speak, and each person is listened to with respect. Equality. No one is more important or has more rights or power than anyone else. The same expectations apply to adults and students. Next is empathy. We develop our ability to connect with others. Next is problem solving. Every participant has something to offer and is important to the good of the whole circle. Then we have responsibility. Responsibility with words and actions. There is no hiding behind a desk in the circle. Then we have self-regulation. Participants must wait to speak and delay their own needs to respond. Each participant is exercising self-control. Last, we have shared leadership. The circle allows for the gathering of differences, multiple perspectives, and therefore multiple truths. Each member is a leader, and every member owns the decision of the circles. Circles are the practice of fundamental democracy, where all voices are heard.
One thing that often happens is, how am I going to get my teachers to buy into this? Well, the way we approached it here at Fusion was by showing them some of the science. And today I'd like to show you some of the proven benefits of talking circles for students, for staff, and parents using scientific articles. Research shows that talking circles significantly improve the emotional well-being of students by providing a safe space to express their feelings, thereby reducing anxiety and stress. Additionally, these circles enhance social skills by promoting active listening and empathy, which leads to a more supportive peer environment and better academic performance. Next are the proven benefits for staff. For staff, talking circles offer a way to manage stress and prevent burnout, fostering a supportive community that improves collaboration and problem-solving abilities. This sense of community is crucial for job satisfaction and retention. Next, the proven benefits for parents. Parents also benefit from talking circles as they improve communication and cooperation with teachers, resulting in stronger relationships and increased parental engagement in their children's education. Next, I'm going to go back to David to explain the rest of the circle process.
Thank you, Mark. So we have reviewed circle seating through guidelines. Next is trust building. The keeper always goes first. Building trust or storytelling rounds are important to take time to share stories from their own lives so they can increase their understanding of others and build empathy. Stories often break stereotypes or assumptions that participants may have about each other. The greater understanding or sense of connection makes it possible for people to hear one another more clearly when discussing sensitive topics later in the circle. Next, we have discussion rounds. We want to explore the purpose, engage in an activity. Keepers ask important questions, then pass the talking piece. Keepers might direct participants to engage in an activity that helps them connect with their thoughts and the feelings on the topic. Examples are a think, pair, share, a worksheet, or small group breakouts. The keeper goes last because they may have to facilitate more discussion or make a decision on something. Then we have closing round and checkout round. Participants share thoughts about the circle, and the keeper will go last. To close the circle, invite participants to share their thoughts about the circle by passing the talking piece. If time is short, the keeper might ask participants to share one word that sums up how they feel about the circle, or give a hand signal 1 through 5. Again, I like numbers, so I'll ask participants on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low and 10 being high, how was the circle for you today? Closing activity. This closes the sacred space. The opening and closing activities should be the same type of activity. If you started with a quote, it should end with a quote. If you started with a video, it should end with a video. Now, again, we have a talking circle activity. I'm going to invite back our Fusion staff to participate in the rest of the circle: trust building, discussion, closing round, checkout, and closing activity video. Welcome back to our circle. Now we're going to practice trust building, discussion, closing round, and closing activity. First, trust building. How long have you been in education, and why did you choose to work in education? I'll go first. I've been in education for about 20 years, and I chose education to work with children.
I've been working in education for about 4 years, and I chose to work in education to make a difference in students' lives.
I've been in education for a year, and I chose it because I wanted to teach math.
I've been in education for 3 years, and I chose it like you because I wanted to make a difference.
Thank you.
Next trust building question. What is a recent highlight from your career in education? And I'll start. A recent highlight for me was taking a field trip to Yosemite.
I'll pass.
A recent highlight for me was taking a trip to the local junior college and showing the kids around.
A recent highlight for me was seeing some of our students graduate.
Now for the discussion rounds. What is the proudest moment in your career as an educator?
I can't really think of a specific one, but I've seen many students struggle throughout their education, and seeing them graduate and seeing how proud their families are and how happy they are during their graduation.
I've only been in a year, so I don't have a lot of examples, but like you, Cynthia, graduation, having the kids come up and personally thank me was a proud moment.
A proud moment for me was getting a group of 8th graders so into the novel The Outsiders that they wanted it to be the theme of their dance.
Thank you. How did it feel to share these experiences and thoughts in this circle?
It felt really good.
Yeah, it felt nice.
I felt really comfortable sharing.
I agree. It was nice to make connections and share with the group. Closing round, check out. On a scale of 1 to 10, how was the talking circle for you today?
It was a 10. I love being in circles, and I like hearing everyone's voice.
Yeah, I agree. It was a 10. I liked hearing everyone's experiences.
Definitely a 10.
I thought it was a 10 also. I always like the opportunity of making connections and learning about other people's thoughts and feelings. So thank you. Our closing activity is another video, and it is on staff training. So at Fusion Charter, we hold staff meetings and staff trainings in a restorative practice format. Sometimes it's in the classroom, sometimes we're in the gym. We have about 15, 16 staff members, so our circles are pretty big. I'd like to thank everyone for coming to today's circle, or welcome to Fusion staff training. Today we'll be doing a staff training on emergency lockdown procedures, lockouts, evacuations, and shelters. The circles provide a safe place for staff to share their opinions and for their opinions to be heard. They're not getting cut off. It's in a structured way. Other times, staff just want to listen. They don't want to say anything. They agree with everything that's being said.
So we don't open the door for anyone? What if there's a student outside?
Staff or teachers give their ideas, their input. We want to value that within the circle. Now, one of the guidelines of the restorative practices says, what is said in the circle stays in the circle, and that's for privacy. So we want to honor privacy in our circle, and we don't want to gossip outside the circle about ideas that were good or ideas that were bad. We are all equal within the circle.
Talking circles can build team relationships because you get to know a person on neutral grounds. Sometimes you're not talking about a real issue. You're talking about something like the weather or, my favorite food, or just some things that are just non-threatening. And so it allows us to find out what we have in common with each other and what we might have differences, and you just get to know a person on a different level.
Kind of like King Arthur and the Round Table. There was no head of the table. Everyone was equal around the table. Similar how the teachers, the principals, the support staff, we were all equal within that circle. Oh, Abe, welcome.
Hey, I just got done with my Comic-Con class. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Now that our circle is complete, we're going to continue with our training. The next part is a think, pair, share. And we're going to pair up with the people next to us. A lot of people, when we open up talking circles, they present their values. And their values are feelings that they have inside. A lot of people will say teamwork is an important value that they have, and we want to honor that. Within talking circles, sometimes what we'll do is have a breakout session, and 2 or 3 people will come together to work on a project. Say we're rewriting a job description for a teacher's aide. Well, we want to make sure that everyone understands what the duties and responsibilities of a teacher's aide is. And so people break out, they come back 5 minutes later, and they're able to share their ideas, and we work collectively as a group. So we have a common goal, so we all have also a common understanding.
We just talk about our concerns, we collaborate ideas, we congratulate our fellow colleagues now. So yeah, I believe it's effective.
And so doing this in a structured way is the best way to get feedback. If people want to say something, they have the opportunity, but they also have the opportunity to pass and say nothing. What we value is when people are giving their input, we can then incorporate their ideas, their input into that policy. It makes it more of a team building activity. When the team agrees to it, we'll have more buy-in and better success rate with our staff. I'd like to thank everyone for being in our circle today with the purpose of introducing circles to new staff. That is the end of our circle. We could all go home. Next, we have resources. I highly recommend the resource at the top of the page called Circle Forward, Building a Restorative School Community. This book has every circle that you can ever think of on a school campus, from winning the big game or losing the big game, trauma in the community, conflict resolution, contentious IEPs, building values or guidelines, introducing circles to staff. It has everything that you can need on a school campus. I recommend also the Little Book of Restorative Justice, Colleges and Universities, and the impact of talking circles on student anxiety. Check out the resources. They're there for you to use. Next, we have some common questions, and we'll like to give some of our advice and answers. I'm going to hand that over to my colleague, Mark Evanoff.
So one of the most common questions was how do we get our staff to buy into that, which we covered a little bit. But some other questions that come up at conferences that we present at are questions such as how to handle uncooperative students. You know, that's a tough one. My best advice to you is to start off with a very light subject. And what you don't want is a student to watch the circle from outside watching in. So you'll have to dismiss that student. What we do here at Fusion is any student who doesn't want to participate in the circle, we let them know about the circle in advance, and then we send them to speak to the counselor about what the circle was going to cover. Usually the student will just choose to stay in the circle and not participate if that's how they're feeling that day. It's not something that we want to push and tug at, so use your best judgment in that regard. What about mandated reporting? We often say what stays in a circle, what's said in a circle stays in a circle. It's important to, of course, indicate to your students that as mandated reporters, we have to report certain things. So not everything should be shared in a circle, as you can imagine. And then last, what if our students never participate? That's something that you have to do with consistency. So here at Fusion, we hold weekly talking circles, and sometimes it takes several months for our students to finally feel comfortable enough to dive in. But the benefit of the talking circle is that they're listening and hearing what the teacher and what other students are sharing and building common practices and resilience with that connection. And lastly, what's the minimum amount or maximum amount of students that we want? Effective circles really shouldn't be bigger than, I'd say, 12. To be honest, the bigger the number of people you have, the longer the circle is going to take. So if you have a classroom filled with 30 students, it might be best to send half of them outside with a para and then work with that group of 15 and do that twice. Those are just some suggestions. You know your school site better than us, so you'll have to make those decisions on your own. But any questions you have, feel free to reach out to David or I, and we can help you with those answers. And with that, we'd like to conclude. Thank you so much for watching our presentation, The Art and Science of Talking Circles.